We all see tracks disappearing year after year and continue to wonder why. Of course, there are tons of different factors, so in this video, I hope I can make it clear and maybe raise awareness to slow the inevitable vanishing of the racetrack. This is the most talked about and obvious reason. I mean, not really obvious to me, as I think these people are actually crazy, but nonetheless, we're seeing it happen real time with Cleetus Freedom Factory. As space and room to build new houses grows smaller and smaller, lots of developers are looking outward, seeing how majority of tracks were originally built a large distance away from cities for this very purpose. We are now seeing housing slowly get closer and closer. Now, the other side of the story will be the greedy and not so well-known strategy of these developers. The land next to tracks will always be cheaper, not only for their large distance away from populated areas, but due to the obvious noise. This is where someone will swoop in and buy the land for cheap, seeing how the county they are being built in won't complain about more taxpayers living and adding to the state and county's funds. Zoning for these homes will be easily accepted and granted, and the developers will then advertise that being next to the track as a plus, but we all know how that actually ends up. So we've seen this time and time again, and examples will have to be Laguna Seca. Beautiful multi-million-dollar homes built in the early 2000s, less than half a mile away from the track, leading to such things as the Laguna Seca pipes, which if you've seen those, slight curve to the left. Look, this isn't really talked about, but there's an obvious war on cars, as more and more people push for a more common and centralized form of transportation from point A to point B. People are less concerned about the point C, D, E, F, and etc., with Tesla and other manufacturers getting closer and closer to true autonomous driving. More people who only see cars as a form of transportation and not this fiery passion that we have will be calling for progress, much like the leap from horses to horseless carriages. We're also seeing a higher amount of negativity against people who actually enjoy cars, from cities who purposely harass enthusiasts so it will be not known to come around, or to entire states. Doesn't help you have things like takeovers and rampant mainstream street racing that are now in the public eye thanks to social media. There's no way really around this, as you can't force someone to become passionate about something they don't really want to. But I would say if everyone got to personally experience the roaring V12 of a supercar or a V8 from a muscle car, there might be a perspective change. Why are tracks disappearing? Okay, and then you proceed to go illegal street racing or takeovers, not once making an attempt to go to your local track. Look, owning a track is insanely expensive. The land required for good-sized track is already going to be a pretty penny, especially if you're trying to do a quarter mile or a decent-sized road course. There's the obvious cost of upkeep, maintenance, and preservation, but what a lot of people don't know or don't take into account is the insurance and staffing of employees and marshals to watch over everything. After all these countless costs, almost too many to name, the bills do add up every month, which means they need X amount of events every week, and with knowing how many people work Monday through Friday, they're typically held on the weekends. That opens up a whole nother can of worms, since there's only about 8 viable days a month. Sure, you can rent out the track on weekdays to private events, movies, TV shows, but unless you have someone mainstream on your belt that you can count on doing this week after week, the idea of rentals does not seem to work out all that well. Track days are especially not cheap for the consumer either. For example, to take my already track-built, track-focused Shelby GT350, I had to get new performance tires, new brakes, complete fluid flush of coolant and oil, gas for the weekend, which if you include the 3 fill-ups to include the drive there and back, that is all before I paid for the track day itself and track insurance for my car. This added up to well over a couple $1,000s. Now look, I am just as disappointed as the next guy about the disappearance of tracks. I think this was one of the best things I've ever done, and as an enthusiast, I can't recommend it enough, especially as we see them start to dwindle. Hopefully with this knowledge, you'll go out and enter into a couple events this year, support your local track, and maybe even just show up at a town hall meeting to show your support. Now, huge shout out to the Freedom Factory and everything Cleetus and his guys have been doing to keep that one alive. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more, I highly recommend you hitting the subscribe button, slapping that like button, and if you really like us, clicking that notification bell. And if you want to be a part of a lasting legacy, much like the Roman Empire, upload your car to our fitment gallery, where we will do monthly fitment battles and you can win huge prizes.